Okay, good morning. As the topic connotes, we'd like to discuss today a very fascinating halacha about halachos Nerei Shabbos, lighting the Friday night candles. There's numerous details to this halacha. We're going to try to focus primarily on one instance, which unfortunately happens over the lifetime. It usually happens at one point, or almost happens, and that's the case of what happens if, God forbid, a woman who, as we know, is typically the one charged with lighting the candles, although the obligation is on the household. Man and woman have the obligation to light, but typically
it's her mitzvah, isn't it?
She gets the first dibs on it, but it is the obligation on the household, and therefore, what happens if a woman, God forbid, forgets to light one Friday night, and she realizes Shabbos sets in? Now that we changed the clock, Shabbos is going to be quite early this week, so now we're going into the winter season. What happens if she misses Chas v'Shalom? So we're going to start. The first source that I found that discusses this, there's no clear Gemara that discusses.
She misses the shkia, or she misses completely?
She misses completely. She doesn't like. She missed. Well, obviously
it's an hour later, and all of a sudden.
Well, yeah, or she realizes it's sunset already. Let's say like this week coming up, sunset's going to be 4:50 or so, right? So. Whatever, approximately 4:50. The candle lighting's around 4:30, right? And she's going to realize it's it's not. We're not talking about a minute after candle lighting time.
But if she didn't change the clock, she'd be an hour early anyway.
All right. Okay, so let's see. The Maharil, who was a Rishon, commonly known as the Rav of the Ashkenazi Minhagim. From him, we have many of the Minhagim of the Ashkenaz, which we all basically follow most of the time. So he was asked this question. So in source number 1, it says, Nishal, it was asked, this was written by his students, the Bas Achos to Marie Segel. So the daughter of the sister of the Marie Segel. So the Marie Segel is the Maharil, that's Rav Yaakov Halevi. And he is asked by his niece the following question. Segel, who was a Levi, so it's Skam Levi or... Okay, so he was asked, doesn't say if it was his niece had this happen to her or her friend, that she forgot, she forgot, v'lo hedlika ner Shabbos, she didn't light the candle of Shabbos, and her uncle responded to her, and he says, she should be careful, kol yamel, all her days from going now forward, lahaisif, to add, al kol ner shel mitzvah, on every time she lights a mitzvah candle. Again, she asked, what happens if I missed a Shabbos candle? And he responds and tells her, every time you light a mitzvah candle, we'll see what that might include in a moment, yoiser mimash l'teir, so you should add to your mitzvah candles more than you typically add. Bishiurim, we'll see, hold on, Bishiurim, within a measure, ad ata, that whatever you lit till now, add more in that measure. And then he concludes and says, Umasai Shira Tanisa, whenever the next fast day comes in, whatever the next fast day is that comes around, Tisvada Gamkain, and you do vidu, you say some type of confession, you should also have this avera on your list of averas that you missed candle lighting. Virmetzono laharbos Tanisa Kocha, and then he says, and if you even want to add an additional fast for your own personal fast day, it's appropriate, and it'll be a kapara for you, and you'll get a bracha. So again,
for the rest of her life?
For the rest of her life, she should add, according to Marie Segel, the Maharil told her that she should now add on and light more than she typically lights. We'll discuss details in a moment. But again, she missed Ner Shabbos. It was responded to her that every time she lights a Ner mitzvah, she should add more than she typically lit. Next fast day that comes around and she's banging herself, al chait, she should have in mind that this is an affair that she missed lighting candles. And if she wants to, for even more extra credit, she can go ahead and choose a personal fast day and have it in mind for tshuva. So this is quite a heavy dose of tshuva for a seemingly not such a significant sin. This is the idea of lighting Shabbos candles is, of course, very precious to all of us, and it's based in the Gemara, but there's no specific verse. This is not one of the 613, thou shalt light Shabbos candles, and if you miss it, this is your tshuva process. There are much more, so to speak, severe averis that chas v'shalom a person could transgress, and we don't find that, well, you missed this, you missed the day of Lulav and Esrog, Chas v'Shalom. So every day, you should make sure to shake Lulav and Esrog the rest of Sukkot twice. We don't find such a thing, person misses Matzah, Chas v'Shalom, on Pesach night. So the rest of Pesach, make sure you have 2 kazaysim every time you eat Matzah. We don't find such concepts that typically will just add on and say, do it in a larger share than you typically done. So why? The first question is basically, what's going on over here? Why are we being so intense on the woman that if she forgets, she made a mistake, it is shigiga. We don't say she did it purposefully. This wasn't wasn't some rebellious act. She made an innocent mistake. She miscalculated the time. She got stuck reading some novel, whatever it was, and she lost track of time. She's preparing the cholent. There could be a million reasons why she might have forgot. And the Maharil seemingly is giving her a very strict order to follow.
Well, this doesn't necessarily apply to today.
Well, we're going to get there. That's why we're here today.
Well, besides today, is there a distinction between a psak that applies to everybody in a generation versus a Rav who's saying this particular person...
Was this directed to this one woman? Or, that's excellent point. So let's go to source number 2, which is the Dark Emotion.
Nothing against the husband.
Oh, yeah. In this case, the husband didn't forget. Why would the man forget?
We could punish him also.
It's his household.
Okay, right. Well, okay.
It's a household. It's a household.
What's that?
The husband.
He has responsibility.
Well, maybe the husband is responsible here also. We don't find any true for the husband.
Maybe he was out of town.
Okay, let's see. Let's go to source number 2. Let's keep moving. So the Dark Moshe, which is the Ramah.
He just ran out of candles.
Okay, we'll see. We'll get to all the details of cases as we go on. So the Ramah, who's about 150 years after the Maharil, and who generally follows the Piskei Maharil. This is the Ramah in his sefer called Dark Moshe, which is on the tour. He first quotes the Maharil, and then where I started underlining after he finishes quoting the Maharil, he says, "V'chol zeh, all I just told you from the Maharil, einay elo chumras rechaykas. These are these far way off stringencies. V'adrab, on the contrary." Near the kol ha'maisef alaneris, if you add and start adding more candles, goreya umafsid, you're not doing anything good. Because the whole point of having 2 candles is, as the common idea is, because we're commemorating the pasuk of 2 psukim about Shabbos, Zachar, Shabbos Lakacha, and Shamar. So Zachar and Shamar, we have the basic 2 Shabbos candles are representing Zachar and Shamar. So if she's going to add more now, she's adding to that, she's taking away from that whole idea of Zachar and Shamar. He's right, perhaps Al Taisef, and he says, but then the Ramah says, about halfway down where it's underlined, says Aval, however, Hanashim Noiges Kedivri Mariel, even though the Ramah, who's a Rav in Krakow, says, I think this is way beyond, this is too extreme, but nonetheless, the women are already doing it. Keep in mind, let's get a historical perspective. Mariel seemingly is the first one to set this down. He's the first one who tells us this idea. Already 100 plus years later, the Ramah wants to stop this, but he can't because all the women are already doing it, meaning, I don't know how often it is that women forget, but however it happened, it already became the accepted norm in Eastern Europe at the time that women were doing it. And says the Ramah, if a woman forgot one time to light Shabbos candles, she now lights for the rest of her life 3 candles. He doesn't say that they did the fasting and they kept it on their tshuva list necessarily, but he says that they accepted upon themselves this custom, and the Ramah kind of puts his hands up and says, okay, there's nothing I can do about it. And then he finds a support for the idea, not for this idea exactly, but for the idea that even though we said the 2 Shabbos candles are connected Zachar v'Shamar, there are other things in halacha. For example, every Shabbos we have 7 aliyos, and the Gemara tells us the 7 aliyos are connected the Shivas Yimei Bereshis, 7 days of creation. Each one corresponds to each day of the week, and we have 6 on Yom Tov for a different reason. The Gemara goes through each one is a reason why we have, and nonetheless the Gemara says even though there's a reason why we have this specific number, if a person wants to add, like we know sometimes a shul they'll make Chosafos and they'll add an extra aliyah. So even though there's a reason why we have a certain number, it's okay to add. Now Ramah says, okay, so you can say that same concept over here, even though there's a reason why we have 2 candles, Zachar and Shamar, nonetheless, if a person wants to add, if a woman wants to add, she's allowed to. So again, the Ramah at first is very bothered by this chumrah of the Maharil, this great stringency, but he just comes to accept it because he says nothing I can do about it. The women have already accepted upon it, and we're not going to try to change the whole system. Again, it's interesting that why are they all grabbing onto this chumrah? Like we pointed out in the beginning, the Ramah himself is saying it's seemingly very extreme. We all make mistakes, chas v'shalom. Unfortunately, things happen. We do tshuva and we move on. But to put on this self-imposed kinas for the rest of a life, to say from now on I have to make sure I have an extra candle, could be very challenging at times. A woman's traveling or wherever it comes up, it seems like she could have to continue doing it.
So today, a lot of women 6 candles or 12.
Okay, don't go away. Don't change the channel. Let's stay tuned. The Levush, who I didn't copy down over here on the source sheet, but Levush was the primary disciple of the Ramah. The Levush quotes his halacha as well, and he says this is the custom of the women. And it became accepted. The source number 3, which is the Elia Rabbah, that was Rabbi Eliyahu Shapiro, who was a Talmud of the Magen Avram, who wrote his Sefer notes on the Levush. Levush is written similarly style to the Shulchan Aruch, and this Sefer Eli Rab is written on Levush, and he writes, I'm going to make 3 diukim in the Lashon. I'm going to point out 3 interesting things from the original Lashon of the Maharil, and how it got a little bit watered down from the way the Ramah and the Levush writes it. And he says, where it started being underlined, he says, Shamina mehat talas. I'll point out 3 things from here. Number 1, Da'af sheragila b'shlosha madlika yoser. Meaning, let's say she used to light 3, 4, 5, 6 candles. Right? And she missed. So now you would say maybe like this. Let's say like this. She usually lights 6 candles. And this week, whatever it was, she lost track of time. She didn't light any of them. So now the next week, what do we say? To continue lighting 6, or now add 7, or light 7 perhaps, right? So the first thing the Eli Rabbah says is that if you read the Lashon carefully, all it says that she didn't light candles, so now she should add more. It doesn't say how many she used to light. That would imply, says the Eli Rabbah, that if she used to light 20, whatever it is, and now she missed all 20, she would have to light 21 from now on. Seemingly also a little bit extreme. Beis, he says, second point, he says, like we emphasized before, afilu ner mitzvah echad she'ena shel Shabbos. Even if she's lighting other neiros of mitzvah, for example, yontif candles, right? Let's say she missed a Friday night light, and now it's Pesach. She's lighting Yontif Pesach candles. What does that have to do with Shabbos candles? Nothing really, except that maybe she uses the same equipment, but really it's a separate idea, right? But nonetheless, the Maharil said, Ner Shel Mitzvah. Every time she's lighting a mitzvah candle, she's got to add more. Also, seemingly a little bit extreme. Thirdly, says the Eli Rabbah, if you read the words carefully of the Maharil, he says, Mashma, it's implied, Durak Hosafa B'inan. She only has to add. It doesn't say you have to put a whole new candle in. She can add another 1/10 of an ounce of oil. It doesn't mean she has to get a whole new candle or a whole new oil cup, he says. He says if she used to light, let's just say for argument's sake, 1 ounce of oil, now she can add 1.1 ounces of oil. So she adds a little more. But the Ramah and the Levush seem to have said, you add a whole other candle, which is seemingly not exactly following suit with what the Maharil said. Hanukkah candle is a good question. I don't know. We'll try it. I don't know. I'm not sure. You're right. It is a mitzvah, but I don't know. Usually the husband's lighting it. Usually, so maybe we'll give them all for that one. I don't know. He wants to know if by Hanukkah, if she has to light now, right? But I would say the answer to that is probably not going to be so, because Hanukkah we light a specific number corresponding to the days. To go now ahead and say, she has to get her own menorah. I know some people have many, many menorahs, but not everybody has multiple menorahs. So if you're just lighting one menorah, then maybe to get a whole other one, maybe it wouldn't be necessary. And then the Eli Rabbah ends off an interesting point. He says, "V'nir lahakol bazel isha ani," a woman who has a hard time. It gets expensive year after year. The cumulative effect of getting more candles is going to add up, so she can just add a little more oil. She doesn't have to put in a whole new candle. So let's just recap what we have so far, the progression. We have the originator of this idea, the Maharil, who paskined again, like Dr. Ozer pointed out, singularly to one woman, make yourself a knas and keep lighting candle, add an additional candle. The Ramah was upset at this chumrah, but nonetheless said the women already accepted upon himself en masse. So even though it might have been only singular, it became popular. The Levush goes with that as well, and the Eli Rabbah points out 3 exacting, diukim, trying to be exacting in the words of different points.
So
yeah.
to this point, does it make a difference then if she, once she got married, she said, I'm only lighting 1 candle a week, and if I light 2, it's just extra, and then it doesn't matter because everyone else lights 2 candles already at a minimum?
Meaning, let's say you're asking the way I understand that she accepted upon herself only to light only 1, and now, God forbid, she forgot. So now, what happens if she lights 2?
But
I would think
everyone
so.
else, but you said everyone else.
The common custom is usually lighting 2, but
so does she have to light 3 now, or is that okay that she can just light 1 more?
I'm not sure. Maybe we can see as we go along an idea for this, but and now I would say perhaps maybe she could just start doing 2, and then she can But I wouldn't suggest that from the onset, because it is common custom, right? If she did that. Okay, the next page. So again, we just have the Ramah, which really he just codifies what we spoke out so far. That the woman who forgets 1 time, she lights now the rest of her life 3, and he says again, like it's not a problem to add on to the number because we can always add. That's how the Ramah paskins. And number 5, source 5, the Magen Avram, on the side of the Shulchan Aruch says, now we have some new ideas. He says, Im Shachacha, where it's underlined in the wide line of the Magen Avram, she forgot Kama pa'amim. She's a habitual forgetter. It keeps happening. She keeps getting bogged down with things Friday afternoon. Sricha lahosef b'chol pam. Every week, it's not a one-time kanas, and then she'll just add on one more for the rest of her life. If she forgets twice, now she's going to have to light 2 additional every week. So let's just say it'll be 4 candles instead of the original 2. Ki hadavar mishum hekera, because the whole idea is, says the Magen Avram, it should be a sign to her, shetehei zihira mikan lahabav kar Shabbos. She should knock herself on the head and be more careful in this halacha of making sure she lights Shabbos candles. So now we're just increasing it a little bit, not necessarily the biggest chiddush, but we're emphasizing the idea that once this became an accepted custom, the Magen Avram is quoting the Bach as saying that if she forgot more than once, she'll have to keep adding until the sky's the limit, so to speak. If she forgets a bunch of times, she'll have to add as many times as she forgets. And he says, "High time." But now the Magen Avram adds off and puts in his own idea. Nira lead imnensa. Some ones happened out of her control. V'lo hedlika. She didn't light the Shabbos candles. Kigon. What's the classic example of an ones? So Florence pointed out yesterday. The classic example he thought of an ones would be a woman who has a baby. She's in the hospital. She's not well. She's unable to light the candles. That wasn't Magen Avram's classic case. Avram's classic case of a woman who's an ones is shahaisa beis asurim. She was in jail and she couldn't light candles. I'm not sure why he decided to pick that example. That would not necessarily have been my go-to example, right? Ukiyot, most similar examples of jail. Okay, right? So ain't sarach lahosef. So here the Magen Avram is paskening if it's an ones, if it's something beyond her control, she's not in charge of the environment, then we would say that she's pater from this kanas, which fits very well into the beginning, what we quoted from the Maharil. The original case was a woman forgot, she was shogag. Right here, where it's an ones, the Magen Avram says we won't kanas her. So again, we're just expanding a little bit. We see how the progression of this halacha is developing, that it became accepted. The women light the additional candle. Magen Avram points out if she forgets numerous times, she'll light numerous candles. However, if there's an ones, I'll try our best to define as we go along what an ones might be. She is absolved from this additional candle lighting. Some examples might be, she's traveling, she's going to visit her parents or in-laws for Shabbos, and she's, East Coast. She's stuck in some major New York City traffic jam, Erev Shabbos, and she pulls in 1 minute before Shkia. And now she runs into the house, and as she's running into the door, Shkia hits. So is that an ones? Or is that a shakach, right? It's an ones, maybe because she got stuck in traffic, or maybe she doesn't have to light it all. Maybe she doesn't light it all. Why? Because someone else is lighting. Perhaps she's a guest. Okay. Or maybe, like we said, maybe a case of a woman who's in the hospital. She had a baby. She can't light in the hospital. The codes, they don't let any real candles. Okay, so we'll try to discuss as we go along. But in source number 6, the Pri Megadim now says another chumrah. The Pri Megadim says, which is on this is a commentary on the Magen Avram. Pri Megadim writes where it's underlined, V'madlekes beis neros. Let's say she typically lights 2 candles, different to Rabbi Schwab pointed out before. She lights typically always 2. And then upam achas rakecha, for whatever reason, 1 week she lit only 1. She didn't have, she forgot, she was spacing out. She lit only 1 candle instead of 2. Says the Pri Megadim, tzricha lahosef. She'll have to add. So that means that next week she'll have to light 3. Furthermore, he says, let's say she typically lights numerous candles. She usually lights 10 candles on Friday night. And one time she made a mistake, she forgot, and she lit only 9 instead of 10. Not the worst thing in the world. She still has 9 candles burning bright. Says the Pri Megadim, Tadlik Yoser. No, she should still make sure next week to do 11. Shetehei Zihira. She has to be very careful. This is her mitzvah, as we pointed out before. So she got to be careful. Even though she missed only 1 candle, the Pri Megadim is seemingly very strict on this and telling us that she'll now have to light 11 candles in our example next week. However, this chiddush of the Pri Megadim is quickly rejected by the Be'er Halacha. The Be'er Halacha, which is the Mishnah Berurah, points out, he quotes the Pri Megadim and says, "V'lo nihira." I don't agree with this chumrah of the Pri Megadim. The kol zehu rak minig. This whole idea is only customary. Like we said, there's no source in the Torah for this. It's not based in the Gemara. It became the minig of the nashim. The women are the one who kind of adapted this custom. Therefore, says the Be'er Halacha, "V'havu delo the hosef lo." We don't have to add on to it. So I was thinking, what's the idea over here? We have this custom that developed. We have all these now different scenarios that keep coming up. She used to light 1, she forgot. She used to light 2 and she forgot 1. She used to light 10, she forgot 1. Pri Megadim says she has to keep adding to the kanas. The Be'er Halacha says you don't have to add. It's just a minig. Don't take it so extreme. So I think as we go along, and I'm going to put out an idea here. I'm going to try to plug it in as we go along. The idea of the Be'er Halacha, the Mishnah Berurah is paskening, is that the ikar idea of halakas neros is a practical purpose. Like the Gemara tells us, we need to have shalom bayis. We need to have peace and harmony over Shabbos. And if it's going to be dark in the house, it's going to be disastrous. You're going to be tripping over things. You're not going to be able to see your food. It's just going to be a disaster. And therefore, the Be'er Halacha is paskening that once you have light in the house, she lit 8 out of her 9 candles. She lit 8 out of 10 candles, even she forgot 2. But Lamaisa, at the end of the day, she has enough. There's enough light in the house that they could benefit from the Shabbos candles. They can have a peaceful Shabbos. Therefore, the Be'er Halacha is paskening that she does not have to add and does not have to have a kanas. Now, the next source number 8, now we're going to try to get some practical cases. Source number 8 is from a sefer called Heichal Hora. It's a contemporary author. His name is Rav Moshe Brandsdorfer. His father was Rav Meir Brandsdorfer, one of the main dayanim on the Badas Eida Charedis in Eretz Yisrael. And he has a base Hora, what's called. He has a house that answers shilas, available almost all hours of the day, where numerous Rabbanim sit and are available to answer questions on almost 24 hours a day availability. And then he compiles every once in a while all the interesting questions that come up, and they publish it in a little sefer. I think 3 or 4 volumes already came out of it. And here in Heichal Hora, in Chelik Beis, he has a shaila. Someone comes running in that it was Erev Pesach time, and his wife was being an Isha Ksheira, and she was busy scrubbing away and cleaning the house. Erev Pesach on Friday, Erev Shabbos, right before Pesach very much. She was so busy cleaning, she totally lost track of time, and now Shabbos hits. And she forgot to light the Shabbos candles. What do we say? Is this a shogeg, or is this an ones? Like we said before, the Magen Avram says, if it's an ones, if it's something beyond her control, then she doesn't get the kanas. If it's a shogeg, if it's some type of mistake, then she gets the kanas. So what do we say over here? Do we say because since she's so under pressure, the whole concept of cleaning up and making sure there's no chametz in the house, that itself is enough to cause an ones? Or do we say no, she should still be on top of her game, and she should have realized when Shabbos was coming in, and we have to kanas her. So in this sefer, in the Heichal Hora, in the second paragraph here, where I underlined it, he responded and he paskined that no, she has to add another candle, like he says later on, because it's not an ones. She put herself into this situation. She set herself up for disaster, setting herself up and cleaning so intensely before Shabbos. She knew that she might lose track of time. That's the derech, when you're focused on one thing. She shouldn't have lost her focus, so to speak, right before Shabbos and got busy with cleaning. He says, look, many other women were cleaning that week and didn't have this problem. They remembered to light Shabbos candles, and therefore he paskined in his case that it would not be considered an ones, it would be considered a shogag, and therefore she would have a kanas. She would not have the fine imposed upon her, and for the rest of her life she'd have to add an additional candle. Does
the husband say to her, hey,
he's busy in shul, he's learning, he's davening,
stay out of the kitchen?
Okay, that's a good point. And I'm going to bring up, he wants to know why the husband's not blamed. I think I'm going to bring up to you in a minute. So the husband should be stay out of the kitchen. Okay, even though the Heichal Hora here is being machmir, I like to try to suggest as we go along and try to find a way who could be makel and explain why perhaps this woman should not have the kanas and not have this fine imposed upon her. She's just trying to do her job and clean for Pesach. First of all, Chacham Ovadia Yosef in the Sefer Chazon Ovadia, which is one of his numerous svarim on Hilchos Shabbos, he doesn't quote the Sefer. The Sefer came out after him, but if the Sefer would have been around in his time, he definitely would have quoted it because he didn't stop from quoting anybody. And he has a similar shaila was asked him about a woman who was stuck in some type of situation where it was questionable if it was an ones or not. And he says, even if you're going to want to say that it was tchilas pshia, meaning she started being negligent, she shouldn't have started this job before Shabbos, and only the last second it became an ones, he said we have a halacha in davening in Siman Kuf Ches by Mincha, that if a person, might happen now, we're in the winter, right? Mincha, the last time daven Mincha is roughly 5 o'clock-ish, right? And a guy is 12:45 the first time daven Mincha, he's in his office, says, okay, listen, I still have a couple hours, so I don't have to daven Mincha this minute. And he starts doing his business, and next thing you know, he gets a call from a client here, and gets a call from a client there, and now it's 3 o'clock. He says, okay, I still have 2 hours to daven Mincha, it's okay, plenty of time, everything's cool. And then he gets called into a conference with the boss, and he's stuck until 7 o'clock, he can't leave. So what do we say? Is he a posheya? Was he negligent? He should have daven Mincha 12:45 right away, and therefore we'll say that he cannot do a tashlumin. If someone's posheya, if he's negligent, they lose out the right to do the makeup davening. Or we say, listen, the last time to daven mincha, at that point he was in ones. At that point he was tied up. Nothing he could do. He's in a meeting with the boss. He would have lost him his job if he would have left at that point, whatever the case is. So we'll be lenient on him. We'll allow him to do the tashlumin. The machaber there paskins in tefillah and hilchos davening by mincha. It's considered an ones, and therefore he at that point, since at the last time daven mincha he was tied up. Of course, it would have been best from daven mincha early. But bottom line, the halacha is that he's allowed to do tashlumin. We allow him to make up the tefillah again by Ma'ariv and daven 2 Shemot Esrei. So says Chacham Avaji, you see, even though maybe in this case as well, I'm applying it to this case of the woman cleaning for Pesach, even though perhaps she shouldn't have started cleaning for Pesach at 2 o'clock Friday afternoon, especially on a short Friday. But if at the end of the day she was so focused and got completely lost track of time, you can say that maybe she's an ones at that point, just like the person who by davening mincha, at the last point he was considered an ones, he was tied up with something and couldn't get out at that time. But even without this concept, if you don't want to accept this idea and compare davening and lighting candles, let's go on a different path. And let's go to the next question, which on the next page, on page Gimel, source number 9. This is a shayla from the Tzitz Eliezer, one of the most contemporary great poskim in our time, who wrote numerous volumes of Chuvas, and he was asked, this is in Tufshin Nundal 1994, a contemporary twist on the question. A woman forgot to light Friday night candles, but they left all the lights on in the house. The living room lights are on, the dining room lights are on, the kitchen lights are on, even the bedroom lights are on, all the lights in the house are on. They left all the lights on, make it the worst case scenario, right? So, it's not dark in the house, but she didn't light the Shabbos candles. Are we going to say she should have a kanas, or do we say, Lamaisa, this light, they can see everything, even places they don't want to see on Shabbos, they can see. So what do we do in such a case? So the Tzitz Eliezer paskins. Okay, good point. Hold on. He wants to know if they left them on purpose or she put them on specifically for Shabbos. Okay, we'll get to that in a moment. Let's assume at first the worst case scenario, she just left them on by mistake. All the lights in the house on. So first of all, the Tzitz Eliezer says in Os Aleph, I'll just point out some of the ideas he says. He says, first of all, typically the woman doesn't put on the lights in the house. The kids put them on. The husband put them on. She didn't actively light the lights all over the house. So maybe she didn't do something appropriate for Shabbos because she didn't do the action. Secondly, he says that they were on since Friday afternoon or Friday morning. She didn't put them on at candle lighting time. They've been on since 7 o'clock Shabbos Friday morning when she started making the cholent. So whatever, or she got the kids up for school. They've been on all day. Electricity's been running. No one put anything on particularly for Shabbos. Thirdly, he says, like pointing out, they weren't done for the Shabbos purpose. They were put on for whatever reason they needed to be put on Friday morning. Fourthly, he says that typically a person lights specific candles for Shabbos. A person has a lighter or whatever they have, candlesticks to light for Shabbos, and now that's sitting bare on Shabbos. That itself should be a disgrace for Shabbos. So the main Shabbos lights, the splendor and beauty of a woman's candelabra is not lit. That itself might be a problem that she didn't like that for Shabbos. Fifthly, he says that chashmal, just the electricity being on, it's on the same level, it's on the whole week. Nothing is special done for Shabbos. The same 60-watt bulb that she has on Wednesday afternoon is on now. There's no special Shabbos lamp she put on necessarily. So therefore, Tzitz Eliezer concludes, bottom line, that she should, yes, have a kanas, even though she had electricity on, all the lights were on Shabbos. He says she still should have the kanas. He concludes in Os Gimel that he saw a tshuva for Rav Vosner, who also agreed with him, this idea that she should have a kanas, and as well, he saw a tshuva from the Kinyan Torah, which was Rav Horowitz, who was the Av Bezdin in Strasbourg in France after the war, and then eventually moved to Yerushalayim. He was on Eida Charedis. He also agreed with this idea that even though all the lights are on in the house, she still gets the kanas. However, although many great poets can say this, the next source, and source number 10, which is the Chuvas Avnei Yoshvei, which was Rav Yisrael Pesach Feinhandler, a big Talmud of Rav Yashiv, he quotes Goy Nechad, which means Rav Yashiv in his Chuvas. He's quoting Rav Yashiv, and Rav Yashiv says, no, let's get practical. Like we said before, the Be'er Halacha told us, arguing on the Pri Megadim, that the reason why we don't have to add an additional candles as long as she lit something, right, again, the Pri Megadim was the idea, if she missed any of her regular candles, she usually lights 10, and she only lit 9, Pri Megadim said, you have to have a kanas. The Be'er Halacha said, no, it's a minig. And we're not going to add on as long as there was light in the house. Says Rav Elyashiv the same idea. He doesn't quote the Be'er Halacha, but I think it's the same concept. Bottom line, there's shalom bayis. There's light in the house. They have a nice, beautiful Shabbos Suda. The husband comes home, makes kiddush. Of course, doesn't say a word to his wife about the fact that she forgot to light candles. Of course, there's good shalom bayis. The food's delicious, and everyone lives happily ever after. Why would we oppose a knas upon her? And that's Rav Elyashiv Paskin, and our fine handler Paskins that as well. And the case actually he's talking about, I extracted this from a larger tshuva. He's actually talking about a case of a woman who's in the hospital for Shabbos after she had given birth, and of course the hospital did not allow her to light candles in her room, and she had got the lights on, and she had lights on for Shabbos, and based on this psak of Rav Elyashiv, he told this woman as well, she does not have to have a kanas, and she can b'di'evet, so to speak, be yotze with the light that was on in her room.
What about the bracha?
Okay, valid point. Depending, there is a big machlokas at poskim if you can make a bracha on electric lights or not. I don't want to get involved in that right now. Even if she didn't make a bracha, also the machlokas is by an incandescent, the old type of light bulbs, right? But in this case, we're not going to make a difference to its LED, fluorescent. Since over here we're not discussing the bracha, we're discussing the idea, the fact there was light in the house. They had a peaceful Shabbos. Therefore, we can rely on that b'di'evet and not put a knas upon her. So we have the psak of Rav Elyashiv against the Tzitz Eliezer, and as well, on the next page in source 11 from the Sefer Malachim Oimnayach, which is Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein, and the son-in-law of Rav Elyashiv, he quotes a story similar to what we just spoke about, a little bit of a different twist though. A woman forgot to light Shabbos candles, but the woman had set up before Shabbos all the Shabbos clocks in her house, and she had had all the lamps and the whatever it was, the dining room lights, whatever going on Shabbos. And in such a case, he quotes from his son, Rav Avram Yaakov, that there's no reason to give her a kanas, because bottom line is that there's, she has light. And he says he spoke to his father-in-law, Rav Elyashiv, and he agreed with him as well. So it's a second place where we see Rav Elyashiv is being quoted as saying, bottom line, if there's light in the house, we don't have to worry about the knas, and they should have a great Shabbos. And lastly, Rabbi Tzina Abba Shaul in source 12 from the Sephardi camp says the same idea as well, that as long as there was light in the house, Shekivan, he says the last line, he says, Sheyesh al kopanim shalom bayis. In source 12, he says at the end, Ein lekonso, we do not find her, afshlo kaima mitzvah halakas neres, even though she did not light the candles. But again, the idea practically here is, according to these poskim, is that you have to have light in the house for shalom bayis, therefore, we will not give her a knas. Just going back for a second to that case of the Heichel Horah, where we quoted before the woman who Erev Pesach forgot to light candles because she was so busy, I would like to suggest, based on these poskim, assumingly there was some electric lights on in the house, at least where they were eating, and had been able to see their food and have a good Shabbos meal, so that according to these poskim, you would not have to have the knas, even though she did not light the candles. Maybe it's a pshia, maybe it's an ones, that might be up for debate, but bottom line is there was electric lights on, so according to at least these chashuv poskim, Rabbi Yashar, Tzina Abba Shaul, and others, they would all say that she does not have the kanas, and next week she could continue to light as regular.
So how did this evolve? Where in the beginning, everyone was against, you had to make a kanas under the law. And all of a sudden, we come up to today.
Well, we're trying to understand. Excellent point. The way I'm understanding the question is that we said that minig became, like the Ramah pointed out, the Rav Vush said, minig became the Nashim accepted upon himself the Kanas. But according to many of the contemporary poskim, the idea was because the women, I guess, according to the way they're understanding it, they were feeling something that Lamaisa, because of them, the house was dark on Shabbos. So they wanted to make sure to impose a self-imposed Kanas upon themselves to make sure there's light in the house. It's a practical point, so to speak. If we're just being practical, right, now we have, Baruch Hashem, we have a different setup. So according to many poskim, you could be Mako. But again, the Tzitz Eliezer and Rav Vosner and others would be Machmer and say, no, the Maisa, it's a mitzvah upon her, she's got to light the candles, she didn't do it. It's the old minig should still stand, and she should now continue to light extra candles. So again, it's a contemporary debate, but at least according to many of the contemporary major leaguers, we'll have a kula here that as long as electric lights are on, we could be Mako. Another question, yeah?
Along the lines of Yale's comment, the electricity now takes away the shamor and the zahur.
Okay, well
you're using the shalom bayit, but but the electricity eliminates
Yeah, but so
remembering
it's
and guarding.
Right, okay, fine. So that's a good question. The post can actually deal with this as well, but maybe that'll be a different share, Be'ez Hashem, at a different time. Why do we still light Shabbos candles today? It's almost superfluous in most cases. We have a dining room light fixture, some type of chandelier, we have recessed lighting, we have other lights throughout the house. Who needs the candelabra? It's totally excessive if we're having...
If it's gone by,
if it's just a practical... So perhaps. The post can discuss this. One eitzah some posts can give is that a woman, when she lights the Shabbos candles, should have the lights off in the room and then only put them on before she makes the bracha. She should light the Shabbos candles, turn the lights on, then make the bracha. That's difficult in many situations. Other posts can say as long as you turn on the lights, all the lights should be on the covered Shabbos. When you put on your dining room light, right before you leave for shul, Friday night, before the husband goes to shul, puts on the dining room light, says, I'm doing it for honor of Shabbos. The wife lights the candles, makes the bracha, and includes everything. There's other ideas that how we can discuss it from a contemporary point, but let's just accept it for now that we're going to still keep the minhag. Everyone should still light Shabbos candles. We're not changing anything. But at the same point, b'di'evet, ex post facto, if a woman forgot, God forbid, we can rely on this idea that the practicality of it is the main purpose, and therefore, as long as the lights were on in the house, she could not necessarily have the kinas. Now, another question comes up, Lagabi Hilchas Yom Tif. Let's say, till now we're discussing primarily a woman forgot Friday night candles. Let's say she forgot Yom Tif, she forgot the first night, I'll tell you the most practical when this comes up. Simchas Torah night. Especially the way we have it here, and many places have it, you don't come home from shul till 12 o'clock at night. So the woman came to shul, she wants to not miss any part of that kaffish. She doesn't like candles right away. She comes to shul right away, beginning of the night. She's here till 12 o'clock. She goes home with her husband at midnight. They're both exhausted. He's exhausted because he was dancing the whole night. She's exhausted, she was schmoozing the whole night. And now they're going to have a quick suda and go straight to bed. And they forget to light Yom Tov candles, Simchas Torah night. Are we going to impose a kanas upon her or not? Now, again, according to the poskim, we'll hold as long as they have electric lights on. So, okay, we can understand you could be makel. But according to the other poskim, or pre-electricity day, is there a difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov? So the Rav told me the other day, and I looked this up, there's a tshuva from the Kinyan Torah, like we said before, the Kinyan Torah was Rav Horowitz, the Av Bezdin in Strasbourg. He paskins, he's discussing this exact case of Simchas Torah night, and he says that no, we won't knaser. Why? He says, the Kinyan Torah says, because it's a milsud lo shchicha. It's not common that on Yom Tif a woman will forget. On Shabbos, it comes up more often that, there's 50 plus weeks a year that there's a woman's lighting Friday night candle, so we can impose the knas. But on Yom Tif, incandescent bulb according to some poskim. According to Machlokas poskim, but we said that we're not going to discuss it this minute. Okay, hold on. But so therefore, the Kinyan Torah paskins at Yom Tif, especially in this case, you're talking about Simchas Torah night. If they forgot, he says you do not have to impose the kanas. However, he concludes that even though I'm going to tell you don't have to put the kanas on, but he quotes the El Yerabah, like we quoted before, who says that if a woman can't afford it, she should add more oil. So he says, okay, even if the woman could afford it here, we're not going to put the kanas upon her, but maybe she should get longer candles, or she should add a little more olive oil. This idea, something a little bit, we're not putting the full kanas on her, so to speak, but something that she should show, be more zahir in lighting candles. However, I saw from Rav Nevin Sol Shlita, he paskins that if she forgets on Yom Tif, the kanas only applies to Yom Tif, meaning according to him, you should, yes, continue to light the additional candle, but not every Shabbos, only on Yom Tif, because we're not going to kanas her according to Rav Nevin Sol on Shabbos for what she did wrong on Yom Tif, and he doesn't speak this out, but I would assume that according to this logic, you wouldn't kanas her on Shabbos for Yom Tif, even though the original lashon of the Mahariyah, like we said, was Shabbos, every ner shel mitzvah she should be kanast. Seemingly the poskim didn't accept that, the Ramah didn't say it like that, so that seemed to not become the custom. Bottom line, it's a standing machlokas poskim, if she forgets on Yom Tov, do we apply the same principles or not? Let's move on now to another contemporary question. In source 13, which could come up as well, you have a case of a woman who lit candles too early. We know the earliest time to light Shabbos candles is Plag HaMincha. Nowadays, that's going to be even, let's say candlelighting, let's say this week will be 4:30, Plag HaMincha will be pretty early, let's just say 3:45 for argument's sake. I don't know exactly what time it'll be. And let's say she lights Shabbos candles 3:30. So technically, she's not yoked to the mitzvah because she lit too early. She's like lighting Friday morning. Do we give her a kanas or not? Again, of course, if you get with the whole electricity question, so according to those posts, it could be makel. But either pre-electricity 30 days, or according to the poskim who don't say that electricity is a kula, do we say that she's now fined for the fact that she lit too early or not? So here we have the Chashukei Chemer of Yitzchak Zilberstein Shlita, who paskins. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. Basically, he says there's no reason to kanas her because the same idea is that bottom line, she has candles lit. It's true, technically, she was not Yotze, the mitzvah of halachos neiros, but the kanas we won't impose upon her because there is light for Shabbos.
Because
she lit too early.
So therefore, she was lit before the time that it's mutter. I mean,
that's right, the mitzvah.
Not because if she lit a big candle and it's like Hanukkah.
And it went out. That's a different question. I didn't discuss it. Let's say that's another question. I think Yale's bringing it up here. Let's say she lit on time, and then it just blew out. So would we give her a kanas or not? And of course, the poskim there say we do not give her a kanas, even though they might be sitting in the dark, unfortunately. But that's an ones. As long as she didn't do anything wrong in that situation, just happened to happen that it went out. There was a defect in the candle manufacturer, or whatever the case is, or some strong wind came that was uncalled for and just blew it out. So that also we would not kanas her. Now, another contemporary question, which I think comes up often, Baruch Hashem nowadays comes up a lot. We have someone who is choser b'tshuva. They were not previously religious. They never lit Shabbos candles in their life. Now, at age 50, they become religious. So they have tens of years of Shabbos candles they never lit. Are we going to impose a kanas upon them and say, listen, you missed 1,500 Shabbos you missed. I want every Friday night to have a bonfire going in your house, light the fireplace in order to fulfill the kanas. And of course, the person is going to say, no, she's not have the kanas. You can read it. It's a very interesting point. But one thing Yitzchak Zilberstein does point out, he says, although we will not necessarily put the kanas upon her, but it's appropriate that since this woman, for part of her life, was not nizar, was not careful in Shmir Shabbos and lighting candles, she should try to inspire other women to start lighting Shabbos candles. If it's in with her capacity, she should join some Kiruv movement and help others who are not yet knowledgeable of lighting Shabbos candles to teach them the idea and the beauty of accepting Shabbos. Just to skip the page for a minute, I put it out of order because it didn't fit just properly. In source 15, which is on the last page, it's again from the Sefer Heichal Hora. He asked this question a little bit of a different twist. He has a case of where there was a couple that they were religious, and then unfortunately both of them, the couple together, veered from the path of Torah mitzvahs, and for 2.5 years they did not keep Shabbos and not light Shabbos candles. So it's not like they never knew about Shabbos. They knew good and well about Shabbos, and whatever it is, they fell to their temptation, and they did not light Friday night candles for 2.5 years. And now they're both being choser b'tshuva together, and they have a calculation. There's 135 weeks they missed candle lighting. So what do? Do they have to light or not? The kanas. And again over here, the Heichal Hora says the same idea. They do not have the kanas upon them. The kanas is for a woman who was shagag, who had some mistake in Hilchos Shabbos. Here they were mazid, and they deliberately, unfortunately, were machal Shabbos, and we would not apply the kanas to them. But again, he says a similar idea. They should do some tikkun in Shmir Shabbos in general. Of course, they're accepting upon themselves now to keep Shabbos is great. If they're able to spread the light of the Friday night candle, so to speak, or spread the light of Torah and inspire others, that would also be an appropriate tshuva approach. Just one final point, one thing I was thinking about why. We asked originally, why did this whole idea start? Why were the women the ones who grabbed onto the Semitic so strongly and said, if we forgot to light Shabbos candles, we want to have a kanas? The Ramah said, halachically, there's no reason for it. He thinks it's a chomer yisera. But like the Ramah said, it's the minig nashim. So I was thinking as follows. The Gemara tells us, this is source 16, the Gemara tells us in Shabbos, Amar Rav Huna tells us how Rogil B'ner, someone who's careful with Shabbos candles and Chanukah, I'm talking about both over here, they will merit to have children who are Talmidei Chachamim. Rashi says, it's on the side over there, the left side, it's squared off. Banim Talmidei Chacham the Ksiv, like the Pasuk in Mishlei says, Kiner mitzvah v'Torah are. The candle is the mitzvah and Torah is the light. Ayidei mitzvah, the Shabbos, through keeping Shabbos properly, v'Chanukah, both candles properly, ba'ar the Torah, the woman will be zochet to have children to light up the world in Torah. And this is really brought up, spoken out very strongly by Rabbeinu Bachya in Source 17 in Parshas Yisro, where the Torah there says, this is before Man Torah, the Pasuk says, Kol Soma Lebeis Yaakov Esagil B'nei Yisrael, right? Moshe, Kadosh Baruch Hu telling Moshe to gather up the Jewish people, first speak to the women, then speak to the men. And there's multiple pirushim for this, but the Rabbeinu Bachya explains it beautifully. He says where it's underlined, V'od, why is Moshe Rabbeinu speaking to the women first? Sha'isha hatova hisibul Torah. A good woman is the cause for Torah study. Shehi yachola, because she is the one who's able lahamshech esbinah, to draw her son, the Beis HaMedrash, to go learn. The fishi mitzuyu bayis. Who's in the house to wake up the boys in the morning to go daven shachris? The husband's already out in the forest chopping wood. He's drawing water. He's working. Who's going to get the kids up in the morning? The woman. She's going to send them off to yeshiva. V'hi merachemes alav, and she will have compassion upon her children. Bekama mini gaguin, with all types of longing expressions. Excuse me, also to draw him achar limud Torah, to get the son to get to learn minura from his youth. V'gam ki yaskin lo yosem, like the pasuk says, even when he gets older, the Torah will not leave him. V'lachein, therefore, says Rabbeinu Bachya, ru'uya ha'isha l'sbal, it's appropriate for women to daven. L'shem yisbarach ta'kadosh baruch hu b'shas halachos haner shel shabbos, like we know, women have a special tefillah by Friday night candles. Shehi mitzvah mutal salah, which is particularly directed towards her. Sheyitein la Hashem banim me'irim b'Torah. This is from the Rishonim. It's not just some contemporary or some Hasidic source, so to speak, that it's good for women to daven by Friday night candles. The Rishonim are telling us that this is the appropriate time for a woman to daven, that she should be zocha to have children of me'irim b'Torah, ki atfila yoser nishmas, because this is the time where the davening will be more heard. B'shas asiyas ha-mitzvah, while she's performing a mitzvah, u'b'schus ner Shabbos, and through the schus of the candle lighting, which is light, tiske lebanim, she'll be married to have children, balei Torah, hanikras ar, and he continues and quotes the Gemara. So perhaps this is the reason why the women were so upset, so to speak. If a woman found herself that, God forbid, she forgot to light Shabbos candles, it's true technically, halachically, she doesn't have to have a kanas, like the Marbal was saying. But the women accepted upon themselves, and that's why the poskim are always trying to find, do they have a kanas, don't they have a kanas? It's a chumrah. It's true it's a chumrah, but it's very emotional. This is the time for a woman to daven, particularly to Hashem, that she should be zocha to have banim following in the path of Torah mitzvahs, and banos as well following in the path of Torah mitzvahs. So if a woman misses it, it only makes sense that she's going to kanas herself, so self-impose a fine on herself, to make sure she never want to lose out this opportunity again. We shall be zoche to be makabel Shabbos always properly. And thank you very much.
Is that where the minute comes that every child born people light a candle?
Yes, it comes from the sources say that this is also the reason why many people have the custom every time they have a child they add on, also based on this Gemara. Yeah.
Not because they missed it. Not because they missed it.